live across Virginia. Joining us now, Congressman, Republican, 9th District, Morgan Griffith. Congressman, great to have you back.
Great to be back with you. Hope all's well.
It's doing fine, and I'm in Hot Springs, your neck of the woods, and we're hoping we're going to see you here the week of December 6th at the Republican Advance.
I am hoping to be there.
All right, it's always good to have you there. I always end up, one of the famous things I do on the Advance is I will rate the hospitality suites. Mark Obenshane has won 3 straight years, so he's the king. Somebody's got to try to knock him off with the hospitality suites this weekend. Congressman, since we talked, the national debt has gone up another $500 billion since we passed the new budget agreement. On the first day, the debt went up $339 billion. Now it's up almost $500 billion. There's no end in sight to this. When Obama leaves office, we're going to have a $20 trillion debt. Nobody's even talking about it. What are we going to do?
Well, I think a lot of us are talking about it in the halls of Congress, and I have a plan that is just a simple little fix that I think will give us more ability to control our budget, and that is, you hear the debate all the time between mandatory spending and discretionary spending, and, we can't cut mandatory spending. Well, that's only because we in Congress allow ourselves to have a rule that does not allow us to cut mandatory spending. And I have a rules change that I have proposed and will propose again, and am talking to other members of Congress about, that would allow us on the floor and in committee to cut mandatory spending. Now, the problem is everybody hears about mandatory spending and they think immediately Medicare, Medicaid, and so forth. And look, there are a lot of programs like that folks don't want to touch, Social Security, that is a part of mandatory spending. But we also have programs as diverse. The retirement home program, that's not what it's called in reality, but we're spending roughly $70 million a year. We take wild horses off of Bureau of Land Management land, and because a bill was passed in the 1970s and declared to be mandatory spending, we can't cut that program or change it other than changing the whole bill. And we could cut the spending on it, though, if we could get a hold of it on the floor and reduce that down over a period of time and get rid of it eventually would be my plan. Now, why are they doing that? Because they had a program they thought the horses would be adopted. They didn't think they'd end up having to take care of them all, but as a part of the program, they said you couldn't do anything to the horses. You had to take good care of them. And as a result of that, we have 50,000 roughly, and these are rough numbers, but 50,000 wild horses on private farms where we pay $400+ a year to have them grazing on private farms because we took them off of federal land, and very few of these horses ever get adopted. So that's just one of hundreds of programs that we need to take a look at. And right now, as a member of Congress, our hands are tied because the rules say we can't cut that spending.
Now, Congressman Griffith, you voted for Paul Ryan for Speaker, right? So
yes, sir.
Is this one of the things where you could go to the Speaker and say, look, we really need to get movement on this. It makes sense, and kind of give him the example you gave me, and maybe we actually see some action?
Well, I'm hopeful that will be the case. Interestingly enough, I talked to Paul about this probably 3.5 years ago, and he wasn't in a position to do anything about it. Now, he felt like it ought to be left within the committee. That would still be an improvement. Right now, neither the committee nor the floor can cut those programs. And at the time, he felt like the committee ought to do it. I'm hoping that because we've had even more rampant spending as a result of all these Obama programs, that he might agree to let us do it on the floor as well. Plus, I've refined the language since then to make it clear that you can only cut. You can't increase spending. You can only cut spending.
So what has to happen to make this a reality? I know we hate talking about making this sausage, but so many people, Congressman, are frustrated that we just don't ever get anything done that makes any sense. What exactly has to happen to make what you outlined, which seems to me to be unbelievably reasonable and sensible and a solution? What has to happen to make that a reality?
Well, part of what I'm doing is I'm out there talking about it a lot, and not always on radio shows, but with a lot of the members of Congress, and in our conference, I've been talking about it quite a bit when we get together and talk, because without 2 years of lead up, we came within 27 votes. I have to swing 27 votes over, so we were about 50. I think it was 52 votes short inside the conference last year. I believe that by the time we get to December late November of 2017, that I'll have those votes there, particularly if we get a signal from the leadership that they can live with it. I think then we'll have those votes because Speaker Boehner, a good man whose leadership style I disagreed with, and now we've got a new leader whose style, at least in the short run, appears to be a better style of leadership for the conference as we have it now. I think that without that opposition that Boehner put up last time to that amendment, this amendment's got a real chance to pass in the rules. And once it passes in the rules, then we'll have a much better process in being able to try to get spending under control.
We're with Congressman Morgan Griffith, Republican, 9th District, Virginia. So, Congressman, all you have to do really is to get this passed within the Republican conference. It's not like you have to have a majority of Democrats on it, right?
Well, you have to have a majority on the floor,
right.
But traditionally, if the majority party, which I assume will still be Republicans in 2018, when we get past the 2016 elections in 2017, excuse me, that if the majority conference sets the rules and then they go on the floor and everybody votes for the rules, or the vast majority of the majority votes for the rules, and that's usually sufficient to pass the rules and make sure that that goes into effect. The Senate, of course, will be upset with that because the Senate has a similar rule. But, we have to do what we have to do, as Jefferson says in his Manual of Parliamentary Practice and Procedures. The House is supposed to do what it's supposed to do. The Senate is supposed to do what it's supposed to do. And then we're supposed to get together and discuss our differences. Under the rules, each House makes their own rules. We can make our own rules. We can change the way we do things in Washington with a mere majority of the Republican conference.
So why would Democrats be opposed to what you just laid out? I mean, it's just common sense.
Well, most Democrats don't want to cut spending, so they would want to see a resolution that said you could both increase and cut spending, so that they could then use that as a leverage point. We'll cut this if you increase that. My rule as drafted, which was the rule in essence from 1900 to 1983, my rule would just allow you to cut spending on the floor in committee as opposed to increasing it in areas that weren't already in the budget.
Get back a week, the Virginia elections just about 10 days ago. What was your assessment of last Tuesday's election results?
Well, clearly the Republicans, held the day. In some of the local races, I would have liked to have seen us do a little bit better. We still have some difficulties getting our turnout out. I know the Democrats were complaining about that, but that was also a problem for us, with a few exceptions. Powhatan County turned out really large.
Right.
But I think that, and I think that was a reaction to the mayor of New York City trying to come in and tell us how to do things in Virginia.
Right.
But we have to figure out how we can let people know that if they really want to make a difference in Richmond and in Washington, or even in their local government, you got to show up at the polls. And I believe if the people show up, the Republicans win, because we are the party of ideas. You just look at our presidential candidates, and I don't have a favorite. But if you look at our presidential candidates versus the Democrats are the party of the old ideas. Let's just throw more money at it. Let's just do this. We have a myriad of new ideas, new concepts that we're putting forward as a party. We're the party that has the younger candidates across the board. I don't think there's any question that the future belongs to us as long as we show up and take it.
Well, it was pretty interesting. You look at the enthusiasm generated by the Republican debates and the record numbers of people watching it. And I was telling somebody earlier, there's a Democratic presidential debate tomorrow night in Des Moines. I haven't seen it advertised. I don't even think people know it's on. So there's a definite enthusiasm for a lot of these Republican candidates that the Democrats just don't have. You think that's going to translate to anything in 2016?
I think it does. I mean, the way the Democrats are going to motivate voters to get out is to try to convince them that whoever the Republican nominee is somehow evil, and that, we're going to push grandma off the cliff if you elect us. That's the only way they can turn people out, because they don't have the power of new ideas, to move this country forward, to make it as great as it can be. Their ideas are all stuck in the ideologies, quite frankly, of the late 19th century and early 20th century. Those ideas, now called progressive, but that have their roots in the philosophies of Engel and Marx.
Okay, this just in, David Toscano stepping down from minority leader of the House of Delegates in Virginia. I know you worked with him when you were in there. I don't have the details on it, but apparently David Toscano just putting something out saying that he's stepping down as House of Delegates minority leader in Virginia. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if he had a challenge within the party that he was worried about, or whether, look, these jobs are not easy. Been there, done that, and they take a lot of time away from your family, and it may just be a family decision that he's made. He is a good man. We disagreed on a lot of issues, but certainly a very fine Virginian, and I'm sure the decision was made with numerous factors in play, but I don't think folks realize that as a part-time legislator making $17,640 is the base salary, and as one of the leadership, you spend a lot of time on the road and you spend a lot of time running around. I don't think folks realize what a sacrifice that is. State legislators, whether they be Democrat, Republican, or Independent, they are really doing this in the vast majority of cases, I'd say 99.9% of the time, because they want to make Virginia better. So my hat's off to him for his service. And I know he'll continue to be a valuable member of the Virginia House, even though he and I will disagree on the issues. He is, as I said, a good Virginian, and I'm sure we'll find out what the reasoning was, but I'd be looking for something that had to do with spending more time with family or on his business concerns.
Well, I have always found Minority Leader Toscano to be a class act. Comes on our show, Congressman, whenever I ask him, and he's always gives forthright and candid answers. Same thing. We don't agree on everything, but I appreciate his beliefs and his passion for what he attempts to do. And I think he had a certain way about him as Minority Leader that I think was very effective. I think he'll be missed, no question. I got 2 more minutes. I want to go to the president's threatening to unilaterally close down Gitmo. Some people are saying this would be a tremendous overreach of his constitutional powers. What say you?
Oh, absolutely, it's an overreach. I mean, look, he doesn't have the ability in the House or the Senate to sustain a veto on language that said he can't close it down. We've made it very clear from the legislative branch this is an area where, we have control because we spend the money to keep Gitmo open, and the president just needs to back off. He's wrong, yet again.
Can Congress do anything to stop this?
Yeah, we can. This is where, is the Senate willing to go along? But we can cut money from other areas that he wants of a similar vein and redirect it towards Gitmo.
I mean, it's just unbelievable when he's making so many of these unilateral moves, and you get a little antsy because he's got another 12, 13, 15 months that he can do whatever he wants, where he's really not accountable to anybody. We're out of time. I want to thank Morgan Griffith for being with us, Congressman, Republican, 9th District of Virginia. That's the South Side. If you want more information, go to morgangriffith.house.gov, morgangriffith.house.gov. We also want to give a shout-out to Hillary Griffith, who is a new judge in Virginia. So in 30 seconds, Congressman, is your wife, Hillary, enjoying her new role?
She is. She gets frustrated some days, but that's the nature of the beast when you're dealing with juvenile and domestic relations matters. As you know, knowing her, she's very good at it.
Oh, yes, she is. She is really good, no doubt. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Thank you so much.